This is the 19th September where I'm at, 2022. It is approximately a little after noon, London time. And yeah, this has been a very interesting adventure. So let's begin once again where we are. The view in front of you is the structure of the United States government. Well, at its founding, three co equal branches of government where sovereign citizens, men at that time, Caucasian men at the time, or landowners more specifically, had the ownership rights of the country. Since the founding, the people have been to all persons who can vote. So, therefore, all those persons who vote are their sovereign and citizens. It is why we appoint, not anoint, our leaders, as the sovereigns are anointed. Since we are all sovereigns, we just appoint someone to do the job. But there has been a faction, because we're built on secular principles, where it is the statement that all men are and women and whatever, if you're into other things, are equal as long as they are able to meet the requirements to vote. Therefore, they are sovereign. So, what has happened is these families over the years and generations have slowly used our own Constitution to try to overturn the Constitution. The first play was in these are the original planters of Jamestown, the ones who uh, used chattel and created chattel slavery to keep costs down and mostly to control the Caucasian population coming in from Europe. Ironically, I found it such a good point of control. They ingrained it into the culture of the United States. Now, the first time in these planters were more loyal to the king than they were to the Constitution, or actually just themselves, actually, were the southern ones in the Civil War. After the Civil War, losing the Civil War, these southern planters moved out west and, you know, Nevada, Arizona, parts of California up to Idaho. You also had the movements of the Mormons out west to Utah and alike. But it's not so much that rural states are all filled with southern planters, old southern planters. It's just that that's where they went. Other people went as well. Because a lot of the Midwest states are just pretty chill, to be honest with you. So these planters moved out, changed their name and their tune, and they were saying that they were conservative, but they didn't really state what they were conserving. And it has become conserving not so much the secular vision of the United States set down by the Constitution and our founders, but this non secular vision of a theocratic fascist state. Now, in order to do that, they had to overturn the crown or and destroy the European Union. Putin has been quite helpful to their cause, investing in farther and farther right candidates. Now they were thinking, well, okay, they're just helping us. When Putin was mainly setting up an excuse to attack the West with the help of China, to weaken the West from within so it can tumble and fall. And right now, we're actually teetering in either direction. Putin has given assurances to Xi of China that the plan is still working, but it's teetering. Ukraine is very much part of that plan, and he needs to win in Ukraine, and he is actually taking the Ukrainian war exceptionally personal. Now he also has to worry about Belarus and the other Soviet breakaway republics or former republics getting a little itchy to leave. Now we know we want the Soviet Union to stay as the Federation, or the Soviet Union, Soviet Federation, to stay together as a Soviet Federation, either with a Putin, a very, very extremely weakened Putin at its head, or a new head of state. However, the Russians do it, but it's up to them. It's not up to us. We just need to keep them from invading other countries, especially NATO ones. So, back to King Charles III. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II realized the danger that Camilla had become to the family. More importantly, not just her family, the family. Camilla maintained the worst parts of Charles, and now unconstrained, or nearly unconstrained, it will only grow worse. Sitting there seething for all these decades, waiting for his mother to finally pass. Now, the contract that. So, before I get to that point, so the question that we have as Americans is who's funding Trump? Who's funding the overthrow of the Constitution? And who's funding, even though Prince Charles or King Charles III thinks that by taking their money or them upholding him to the crown by, well, actually, them upholding him to the crown and him doing the machinations that he's doing or he thinks he's doing, he is in control when it is exactly the opposite. So they now have him under control. He just doesn't realize it. The moment he sets to exercise his will, they will inform him his will is nil. But he believes it is fully powered because, in my thinkings and realizations, a certain thing came to mind. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II made a verbal contract, a verbal end, with the world and the globe as her witness, with a mechanic who happens to be an American citizen. What that means, in truth, is Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II made it a oral contract with the state of Great Britain itself. Let me repeat that one. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II went into an oral contract with Great Britain itself, as I am a mechanic and of royal blood. Therefore, the oral contract was with the state of Great Britain and must be upheld by the crown because it was the crown making a contract to the crown and the state. The most important contract from the state, the crown, to the state, the people, is the Magna Carta. You see, the mechanics were upheld by, what is it, Parliament. And right now we know that within Parliament, the House of Lords has been infiltrated by the FSB. So we need to know who's willing to give up 15% of their loot. Not who's going to give it, but who's going to give it up. Unlike in America, giving up 15% of their loot, even though it is a choice, it's a very strongly worded choice and suggestion. Same as with the Conservative Party, all 1,000 persons of the Conservative Party, the same thing. By them having to give up their loot, and by the way, we know where it's all hidden because the British Empire pretty much controls everything. So, back to that's what Putin meant, what he was trying. Well, I'll explain the Atlantean statement later. But so now we need to know which one of you, because the persons who are trying to overthrow the crown, even though the crown believes, King Charles believes that he was just working to overthrow the Constitution. That's his goal, actually. The same person's working to overthrow the Constitution, or the same person to working to overthrow the crown. But the crown, as King Charles believes, that by he will gain more power and become a tyrant. Well, the part about the tyrant part, he's not really so sure about. Well, no, but he's definitely going to become a tyrant if he is unchecked. Because by precedent, and by law, King Charles III has to abide by the verbal contract made with the state of royal, myself, a mechanic of royal blood, and the state as herself and sovereign. I know this sounds so confusing. Essentially, to make it see for one more time, I get Great Britain is Queen Elizabeth, or in this case, King Charles III. The crown is certain are those persons of royal blood, keeping them in power. The mechanics are of the crown. A contract between a person of royal blood who is both a mechanic is a contract to the state of Great Britain. But since the crown, as Queen Elizabeth II, is the state, the contract between myself and Queen Elizabeth II is a contract between the state and the state. Because mechanics are brought together, were brought into being by Parliament. Now, the other contract, that the main contract that upholds the crown, is the Magna Carta, and that is a contract between the state and the Lords, which is now turned into Parliament. So, by not upholding the contract between the state and the state, Queen Elizabeth and myself, by precedent, he no longer has to uphold the contract of the Magna Carta, the state, King Charles III, and the state, Parliament. Because the House of Lords has been infiltrated by the FSB and the Conservative Party has been infiltrated by the FSB, it is up to the House of Commons to uphold my contract in order to maintain the contractual obligation of the Magna Carta and keep King Charles III in check. If not, it is a direct threat to the Constitution of the United States. For these are the same people that are attacking the Constitution of the United States, and it is King Charles III's impetus to also dismantle and destroy the Constitution of the United States. He said this when he said he was trying to cut himself free of the mechanics, and instead of being the defender of the realm, becoming the defender of the realm, being the secular king. And secularism cannot have a king. And at that point of him naming himself the secular king, he is now naming himself the king of the United States. And while that might seem very much a stretch, this is how the Game of Thrones plays the game. And because King Charles III is now a threat to the Constitution and the European Union, and this is the hardest part for them to understand, because we view things in the terms of democracies and continuation and niceties. This is the game of power and pure ruthlessness and raw domination. These rules are a little bit different while still being the same. Now, most people will not believe what I am saying, but those who understand the law will see it and understand it. When King Charles was talking about the Constitution in his address, that's what he was meaning, that he no longer has to abide by it. It is more of a suggestion as opposed to the law. As long as the House of Commons does not uphold the verbal contract and written contract that I have with Queen Elizabeth II and her family. And that being, we find out who is trying to overthrow the Constitution and the crown of of Great Britain, because by paying King Charles a pittance to attack me and and not follow through with the contract, he's essentially stating he has to not deal with the contracts of the United States and Great Britain. Pardon me. All by precedent. It's what we do now affects what we do later. It is up to the House of Commons to uphold my claim. But here's the thing. Most people who are complaining about, oh, 25% at 400, whatever. The Let's say we're using the low end of $10 trillion. So that's $1.5 trillion. The family gets $1.1 trillion. In order to keep it out of the hands of King Charles III, as stated within the contract between myself and Queen Elizabeth II, the Privy Purse would be then assigned to a board of trustees. A trust would be created. Privy Purse would be a part of that trust and the trust board of trustees. And as you noted, each working royal, has 1/100th, 100 pieces of 100 ideas that they can come up with to invest in. So let's start with Prince Andrew. He loves his teddy bears, strange things. But his 1/100th, which is $1 billion, can be invested in teddy bears, saving the teddy bears, because it still has to make money, mind you. Because the money that's made is then reinvested into nonprofits that actually do good works. Because with it in the crown, the capital in the crown, what's it called? The crown. Da, 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 I misspelled. It's called the crown. Crown Estates. That's about it. because that is where the money's at, to be honest with you. It's, so everything goes into the Crown Estates. The Crown Estates, 75% of the Crown Estates goes into Her Majesty's treasury or His Majesty's treasury. So in other words, it goes back to the estate. The working royals become truly working royals. 25% goes into the back into the privy purse, but since it's in a trust, the family can say, well, that capital will be held back until King Charles III and Camilla pass. Meanwhile, the family, Prince Anne, Prince Andrew, Prince Harry, Prince William, can change the world. What do you do with $100 billion? And you have 100 different ways that you've written down things that you want to invest in. We know climate change, but what about all those things, the whimsical things? These are the things that are at stake because it puts, contains Prince Charles, protects the Constitution and the European Union. But if you don't contain Prince Charles, he will be a tyrant because he will not be contained, because the precedent of the Magna Carta will no longer be in effect. This is the opening that King Charles III sees. So the question then becomes down to the two brothers. Both of them will remind him of Diana. Prince Harry is about ready to explode probably about right now. The woman who killed his mother sits as queen. And then to find out that his dad, and that same woman were the actual ones who attacked his mother and then attacked his bride and child. And then Prince William, who Prince Charles thinks is just a weakling. So Prince William has to decide, is he going to be a man of his own merit and might, or will he just be ground under by his dad? Or will he, what is it, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn? Or will he fawn? Well, the thing is, we can't let him have that that choice, to be honest. Because if the Magna Carta falls, so too does Parliament. So too does our Constitution. Because the same persons who paid Charles are the same ones that are trying to destroy the Constitution, and we need to know those people because they were also paid off by Putin and Xi. So Prince William is either going to present to his father, the king. He will uphold the contract of grandmother, or we will release Prince Harry. And if either these two don't, even if that still doesn't work for you, remember Parliament, if it wants to continue on, must oppose you by forcing you to sign this and upholding the contract to the state. Now there are those now what happens to my cut. As within that contract, it is stated that investments will be made in the United States and the Commonwealth as a way to invest and build a greater strength within the globe and within the solar system as we are going to be spacefaring species here soon. The crown, but in order to do these things, so even though, say, we know, for instance, say, okay, because it's in the crown, the the crown's cut is in the crown estate, and 75% goes back into the treasury. There's the 25% where it's necessary, where the family has to themselves directly, and they and there's only one generation of working royals. They have to develop capital to make sure that their children's children are taken care of into the future, and that's where myself and Don come in, because they're going to want to make investments that go directly transferable to their children, Princess Anne and Prince Andrew, and then even Prince Harry. Working with Don and his associates, we can invest in small businesses throughout the United States. The housing crisis, $1 billion to the housing crisis to build new homes. Investing in technologies so that way we can reach the stars and Mars, and we have the brain trust to be able to stay ahead of our rivals in the globe. We have 75% divorce rate, and we know the biggest spenders are families. So even raising 20 that 20 75% to 50%, and then taking the illegal trade to down from 40, was it 55% to 49%, is trillions and trillions of dollars of unreleased potential and capital and wealth. And then at the same time, that unreleased potential and capital lowers because when people believe that there's something more, they tend not to have as many kids. That sounds cold, but realistically, the 1% want to remove a lot of people from this planet. And if we do it through death and violence, we will turn ourselves back to the Stone Age. So it is up to Parliament, most actually, not the House of Lords, because they owe 15% to the Queen's investment funds, and not the Conservative Party, because they too also owe 15% to the Queen's investment funds. And I do mean Queen's because this contract was between myself and Queen Elizabeth II, and King Charles III, by law, has to uphold that contract. This was a purposefully done by Her Majesty, as it is showing to be very much why she was the Queen for so long. Now there will be so many people out there who will be upset by how much. But the thing is, how much my cut is. But that's by if I lower my cut, then it actually creates the culture where they can lower where Caucasian persons can come to. If they're dealing with a melanated person, they can say, well, they don't have to expect the normal average number. It's a matter of respect. And also, it gives me the capital to complete my task, which is to invest. Who would you rather, if you were an Antiguan or a Barbadian or even a Jamaican? The white guy you know who's going to come to steal your shit, who does not see you as anything, or me, whose wealth is tied up with your wealth, whose riches must be tied up with your riches. The Chinese want to just use and extract. Americans just want to use and extract. I just want to use, just make some money. And they go, what about your progeny? Well, that's up to you. I can only deal with what's here in front of me, set the tone, let the ship flow, and that's up to the next generations to see what they do with it. But in this generation, I want to set that tone. The royal family wants to set the tone that we can build a better world. We can stop climate change. We can do the moonshot. We can colonize Mars. We can build out to the asteroid belt. And who knows? One day we can create ships that jump from one galaxy to the next, or from one star system to the next. And while this might sound all so wacky and fleeting and whatever, this is actually closer to true reality than we can have even have dreamed of even 100 years ago. But it starts with us not blowing each other up. And that means holding the king, or keeping a king from thinking he's a tyrant. And in order to do that, we have to uphold the Magna Carta. To uphold the Magna Carta, you must uphold precedent of a contract between state and state. Queen Elizabeth II has a contract with a mechanic. A mechanic is constituted by Parliament, for we are the state. The mechanic in question is of royal bloodline, so it is the state having a contract with the state. And King Charles III's belief in action states he does not, that he is above the Constitution, the Magna Carta, and Parliament, if he is not held to to go through. Not go through is not the word. I was like uphold the if the contract between myself and Queen Elizabeth II is not upheld. Your lawyers will most definitely will be going through this. But once they're done, present the options. Prince William gets to live and raise his children, has the purse strings by sitting on the trust to control, to make sure his dad doesn't do dumb shit, because they'll see the actions of what happens in Parliament through their investments. Prince Harry gets not to look down upon his brother for being an idiot or weak, but being for wise and seeing that sometimes patience is the way to go. Prince Anne gets to, she's the one who puts in the 100 things that the Queen Elizabeth II and wanted to be invested in, as well as build out something for her daughter and her children in general. Prince Andrew serves as the warning to to King Charles of what happens when you disavow your duty, when you have so much responsibility. Never believe you fit, Rep. Fits so much now. So that is option A. Option B, because Prince King Charles III is a threat to both the European Union and the Constitution of the United States. a near and present danger due to him being bought out by our mortal enemies, the CCP and the Russian Federation under Vladimir Putin, and authoritarianism in general, and his unwillingness to uphold the treaties to protect the Constitution in particular. The United States, European Union will look the other way as certain persons disappear and certain persons grow ill. If Prince Harry is unwilling to do so, we, the people of the lodges, our power is in the Western civilization. Putin had stated, he made it blatantly clear, he wished to destroy the Atlanteans. He wishes to destroy the lodges. He wishes to destroy Western civilization. He wishes to destroy the work of the Grand Architect. And he's using London and Prince Charles to destroy the Constitution of the United States. Because once, if King Charles does not uphold the contract, it would be best served for all of the other countries within the Commonwealth to immediately become republics. Because if they do not, King Charles and his allies will start extracting, and colonialism will begin all again, which always leads to a brutal and deadly war. This is not a joke. This is something I'll take a second to soak in. But this is the Game of Thrones. My selfish best interest is in the continuation of both the United States and Great Britain. Allowing Charles to subvert the mechanics is not in my selfish best interest. To allow Charles to subvert the Rosicrucian orders or the Masonic orders or the Knights Templars is not in my selfish best interest. My selfish best interest is in making sure that King Charles III upholds the contract between myself and Queen Elizabeth II of Great Britain as a way to uphold the most important contract that I care about, the Constitution of the United States of America. Because by not upholding the contract, is he not upholding the contract between the state of Great Britain internally, he's not upholding the contract between an American citizen and Great Britain. Which also means he's not upholding contracts between countries, and we'll assume that he will not uphold any contract that he does not deem whatever between the European Union and himself. Now he'll give assurances, but assurances are meaningless, as we've seen with Putin. That's why we believe in the rule of law, the rules-based order, so everyone knows how to play the game. And someone just doesn't decide, well, I don't like the board, I'm going to just change it and you'll go by my rules. That's what a tyrant does. So, Don, can your boy Jay-Z get 1 million people to Washington? Or is he going to be more upset that 25% when the royal family's getting 1.1 trillion or 100 billion. I mean, not 100 billion, 1,000 billion and 100 billion dollars. Are they going to be more upset about my 25% cut of that and your 25% cut? Are they going to cut off their nose to spite their face and then live more in subjugation? Or are they going to say, oh, we can change the whole world? Because Jay-Z will now have access to the masters of the universe. You will have access that most black folks will never have ever imagined in their entire life. And you might say, well, we can use Lady Markle. Lady Markle did not have the contract between the crown. Lady Markle does not hold the keys to a future we can imagine. Because Lady Markle, even though she is titled, she is not royal blood. This contract can only have had between us. Black folks can be pissed off about me making my standard normal the rate, or they can say we can become better, that there's opportunity here. My investments have to be in, as per the contract, United States and all the Commonwealth countries. Capital can start flowing in the United States, roll back out to the Commonwealth countries, come back up, roll back into Great Britain. Capital flows, makes wealth. It's not about how many billionaires that are created. It is how much you've increased the GDP, how much wealth you've increased over all of your people there. Don, can Jay-Z do that? Can he set aside his ego? Oh, 3 billionaires. But has the GDP of his people increased? How much more has the average wealth individual increased? If you increase it more, you get more billionaires. The better the soil, the greater the crop yield. So at 6 o'clock p.m., Prince William, 6 p.m. London time. Parliament has until 6 p.m. London time. So you can present Plan A. If not, the United States will have to present Plan B, which is your brother. And right now, I'm pretty sure he's exceptionally thrilled. He has no qualms with using the assets. And no matter what you do to him, it won't matter. And you know it. You'll be stuck on that throne, not being able to truly be the dad you want to be. You're a good man, Prince William. But a good man must be ruthless to rule and know which ones are really trying to work with him to maintain his rule. Well, there might be a day you will have to be ruthless. It should never be done just out of spite and terror and just weakness. It must be done because that it is what that must be done. And there's the strength and courage. That's what your wife sees in you. That's why she was able to find her true love. To find out that all she had to do was just be herself, and she gets the prince and the king. Oh, dude, yeah, she's extremely protective of the children as well. And if you want to see her, in her eyes, the pride of knowing that she truly married a king, then the king protects his family, cousin. Or we can go with option B, because we have no qualms with knowing what Prince Harry is going to do. Small team, MI5, MI6, CIA, EU security services of different countries, all working to protect their countries from being blown apart and turned and rumbled under by a tyrant or a would be tyrant. That's a no brainer. Long live the king, and may the flag forever wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave. We look forward. Well, we know that you won't make that decision, Prince William. So does Prince King Charles. So